Welcome back, folks. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and this is WrestleRant. Right here in the show, I break down and review every pay-per-view that I watch on the WWE Network, and today we're talking Armageddon 2008 by wrapping up the Armageddon review series by talking about the final installment of the pay-per-view today. Unless they bring it back as of this recording, they haven't. Maybe they already have done so by late October, November, whatever. Whenever this is going up, I have no idea. I'm recording and talking about these shows so far in advance, I have no idea when this is going up. But even still, as of right now, the show is not back, but hopefully will be brought back down the line. So nevertheless, kicking off the show for, now I was going to say for the ECW Championship, but it was a non-title match. ECW Champion Matt Hardy taking on Vladimir Kazo. And I will say this much as well. As always, I was watching wrestling at this period in time, as you guys know, probably by now. I started watching in April of 2008, yet I had never seen this show before, surprisingly enough. And this is the final '08 show that I had yet to watch. I've seen every other pay-per-view, specifically through WrestleRant and reviewing all these shows for you guys. I just never found the time or just never really felt the need to go back and watch some of these shows, other than like SummerSlam, which I've seen multiple times. But surprisingly enough, in the 2.5, almost 3 years that the network has been around, I had never gone back and watched Armageddon '08, and obviously I did not watch it at that time. I was a fan at the time, but I did not watch it at the time. So this was all new content for me watching it back to review for this show. So opening the show, like I said, I almost said it again, for the ECW Championship. It was not for the ECW Championship. It was Vladimir Kazo from SmackDown, who was embarking on an undefeated streak at that period in time, taking on the ECW Champion, Matt Hardy. Again, a non-title affair. A good match, a typical Vladimir Kazo match, though. Why they opted to push him, I'll have no idea. I'll never have any idea. The guy just was not good. He was a good Sambo wrestler, but he bored people to fucking tears, dude. That match with Triple H in the main event of Survivor Series the month prior was one of the worst pay-per-view main events this company has ever put on. Just fucking atrocious. But they still opted to push him. He interfered in the main event later on in the night, which I'll get to momentarily at the end of the review, obviously. They still opted to push him. He remained undefeated for another 3 to 4 months. It's insane. But beyond that, as you can imagine, they dropped all interest in him. He did not even wrestle at WrestleMania 25, despite the major push that he got in the year, leading up to that. Regardless, Vladimir Kozlov attacked, had this little mini feud going on with Jeff Hardy at several points in the latter half of 2008. So it really only made sense to kind of transition that his focus from Jeff Hardy to his brother Matt Hardy. So again, a non-title affair. I guess the commentator said that because Kozlov was a SmackDown guy and has never before wrestled in ACW, why would the match be for the championship? I get that, but what didn't make sense was the fact that Kozlov won here and the feud was then blown off. It made Hardy look weak and made the championship look like a piece of shit, as if it wasn't a piece of shit already. It was pretty much worthless by that point regardless. But as a match, it was alright. Kozlov won. Did nothing for Matt Hardy. Barely furthered the momentum of Kozlov, considering his push was just dead in the water at that point. No one really gave a fuck about him. But as an opener, it was alright. And Kozlov won clean too. He didn't cheat. Again, further making Matt Hardy look weak as champion. More so the belt than Matt Hardy. Up next in the finals of the Intercontinental Championship #1 Contenders Tournament, CM Punk, who is the former World Tag Team Champion, lost his half of the World Tag Team titles the night before at a house show against Rey Mysterio. Didn't lose the tag team titles too. I'm saying he faced Rey Mysterio on the show. And the first ever one-on-one encounter between these two, long ahead of their feud on the SmackDown brand in the first few months of 2010, which was a great feud. A series of great matches, and even there, even on this show, we got a bit of a taste of what they were capable of. The crowd wasn't really all that into it for the first half of it. I would have loved to have heard Regal on commentary. He just kind of sat at ringside, who was the then Intercontinental Champion, the King of the Ring, had Layla by his side. 2008 was his fucking year. As you guys know, he was the one that got me into wrestling to begin with. But he's always been great behind the booth, whether he's a guest analyst, a commentator himself, as you've seen in NXT in recent years. I was a little bit disappointed he was not behind the booth, but I was glad he had a presence at ringside nevertheless. But still a very good match, especially in the final few minutes. A lot of fun, near fall, CM Punk winning clean, legitimately breaking the nose of Rey Mysterio on the GTS, made him bleed through his mask, which was pretty crazy. So for anyone who calls CM Punk's GTS a piece of shit, that Kenta's is a lot better, and it is, I will admit. Kenta, Hideo Itami, whatever. Punk did hit some nasty GTSs, or go to sleeps, I guess. And this being one of them. This looked brutal, but a really good match and a great endorsement for CM Punk to beat a former world champion. He was a former world champion himself, but barely. Who really remembered that first reign as world champion? Let's be honest there. After that, we had a Belfast brawl between two ECW competitors, Finlay and Mark Henry. Tony Atlas in the corner, Mark Henry. Hornswoggle was nowhere to be seen, yet he showed up anyway. A fun little match. Did not really deserve to be on pay-per-view. I'm glad that the ECW brand was represented well on the show, especially in the absence of an ECW championship match. But it was an alright match. Finlay won. Like I said, an ECW TV main event, but Finlay won, put the feud to rest. Just decent stuff, decent filler. Can't really complain about that. After that, we had Batista versus Randy Orton, a match many years in the making, as WWE's touting it as these two, my apologies for my phone fucking going off. I owe all of you guys a soda, not a beer, because I don't drink beer, but rather a soda. Anyway, Batista and Orton, a match many years in the making, given their roots in Evolution. And that was the whole purpose of this feud. The whole purpose of this program was that Randy Orton felt betrayed by his Evolution stablemates, as he should have. He was absolutely in the right in his feud with Batista. He was turned on by Batista, Ric Flair, and Triple H right after SummerSlam in 2004, 4 years prior. And he obviously has a very good memory. He did not forget about that, so he had every right to be angry at the animal. Let's be honest here. But a good match. I enjoyed it. It was kind of boring for the most part. I don't know what it is. I just like Batista's matches. I like him as a wrestler. He's not a Chris Benoit. He's not a Chris Jericho. He's not even a CM Punk or whoever. He's not a great in-ring wrestler, obviously. But in the ring with the right opponent, I enjoyed his matches with Randy Orton in 2008 and 2009. I thought they had some really good chemistry with each other. I thought this was a good match. And maybe it's just because I've seen the match so many times. It's included on Batista's first DVD, I Walk Alone, which I watch every January. It's just a tradition of mine, just because his birthday's around that time of year. And I watched it before he came back to the company in 2013. Or in 2014, I watched it the January prior to that. Anyway, I just love watching that DVD back, so I always see this match. I've seen it at least 6 times at this point, if not more. It's a good match. Batista wins despite interference from Cody Rhodes and Manu, who were banned from ringside. I think they came back out at one point. But Batista winning with a Batista bomb. And a great finish, too. Batista, I think, was on the top rope punching Orton. And Orton kind of countered, and he was going to do a powerbomb of his own or something like that. And Batista reversed right into a powerbomb, got him into the position for a Batista bomb, nailed him, planted him to score the victory. Good match. And then Orton would put him on the shelf a mere, I think the next day or maybe 8 days later. I forgot what it was. And then Batista was out of action for about 4 or 5 months. I think he already had a nagging injury for the match with Cena from SummerSlam. It's still a good win for Batista, nevertheless. After then, 8 Divas Santa's little helper match. This typical holiday bullshit. I mean, it's always great to see the Divas in their amazing looking gear, but let's be honest here. These matches are never really well wrestled ever, and it's just typical filler most of the time. So it was what it was. Went all of 5 minutes. Can't really complain. The baby faces win. Maria, Kelly, Mickie James, and Michelle McCool beating Jillian Hall, Victoria, Natalya, and Maurice. I'm pretty sure it was just a Raw and SmackDown Battle Royal. Maria was on SmackDown, Kelly on Raw, James on Raw, McCool on SmackDown at this point, Maurice on SmackDown, Hall on Raw, Victoria on SmackDown, Natalya on SmackDown. So why the hell were the commentators for ECW talking here? Matt Striker talked a lot during this match for some reason, and I have no idea why. And it was very annoying. The match itself was already your typical filler bullshit for, the holiday bullshit. Just your campy holiday comedy. But why was Matt Striker talking? Why was Matt Striker talking here? It seemed like they largely detracted from the match. Again, it doesn't really matter. The match hardly meant anything anyway. But it was kind of weird that Striker was talking over all the commentators. They were just having fun with themselves for whatever reason. I don't know. That's prevalent even today, as you can probably tell. So that just kind of stuck out to me. So Great Khali comes out afterwards for a Khali kiss cam, only to make out with Mae Young. A sight I wish I could erase my memory forever. After that, for the World Heavyweight Championship, John Cena taking on Chris Jericho in a pretty good match. I thought it was better than their Survivor Series match just because it was shorter, it was sweeter, it wasn't as boring for the first half of it. They've had good matches. I can't name one great match that Cena and Jericho have ever had. And the weird thing is that Jericho has only beaten Cena once. And that was when he was a rookie back in 2002. And they've had a lot of matches in 05, in 08, 09, 2010. 2012 they had a match, and Jericho has lost every single time, believe it or not, which is really weird. But yeah, still a good match. Cena wins, LOL, pretty predictable, still the World Heavyweight Champion. A segment I forgot to mention, JBL comes out and says that he has bought in Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels has his house foreclosed, he can't pay for anything in the light of the bad economy, and I'm pretty sure, I read at the time, that the reason, and you can pretty much tell where this was headed, that I read at the time this whole storyline was based off of the movie The Wrestler, which came out around that period in time, obviously, with Mickey Rourke. Amazing movie, by the way. And about Mickey Rourke, he couldn't support himself anymore. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And that he's a broken down wrestler. He can't cut it anymore. He has to go to all these pathetic, independent wrestling signings with all these other has-beens that can't cut it anymore and can't make money and their bodies all beat up and shit. And as soon as you heard Michael saying, I don't want to wrestle in high school gyms and, I don't want to limp to the ring in a high school gym, as soon as he said that, you know that he was alluding to the wrestler, and that's exactly what this story was kind of inspired by. Shawn Michaels didn't die, thankfully, like Mickey Rourke did in The Wrestler, like Randy the Ram Robinson. That was thankfully not the conclusion to this feud, but it would lead to their No Way Out match many months later, so I thought this was fine. And we saw the same thing, by the way, years later with Big Show and The Authority, which was fucking awful. For what this was, I thought it was decent, giving Michael something to do before his great match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Thank God the long-term plan was not to do JBL Michaels at WrestleMania. That would have made that the worst WrestleMania of all time. Because let's face it, Taker and Shawn Michaels, I know I'm way off topic here, was the only great match from that show. If they did Michaels and JBL and then The Undertaker versus, Vladimir Kozlov or something, oh, jeez, that definitely would have been the worst WrestleMania of all time, no doubt. So we get to the main event for the WWE Championship, a triple threat match. Edge defense against Triple H and Jeff Hardy. So the whole backstory of the feud was this. A lot of different factors going on here. But Jeff Hardy was mysteriously attacked over Survivor Series weekend at a hotel in the stairwell, and he could not compete that night. He showed up anyway, but he could not compete officially in that match. So he was replaced by Edge, who I guess it became Triple H and Kozlov one. I talked all about this in my Survivor Series review about a year or so, 2 years ago, I guess, at this point. But he was replaced by Edge, who came back, won the championship. So we have technically another triple threat match here. And that wasn't really a triple threat because it was basically Kozlov and Triple H for 20 minutes, which was, as I said earlier, fucking god-awful. And then it came down to a triple threat in the final few minutes. A lot like WrestleMania 31 with Rollins, Reigns, and Brock Lesnar. So anyway, this was a standard triple threat match, start to finish. None of that, swerve bullshit. And the thing was that Hardy came out, he came up short of winning the championship time and time and time again. And it got to a point where he was still over. People still fucking love the guy. He fucked up. He got suspended. He drops this championship. He dropped the IC title. Couldn't go to WrestleMania. Lost every WWE title opportunity that he had. Lost at SummerSlam. He was on a pretty lengthy losing streak. Let's acknowledge that for a second. For a long time, he didn't win many matches in 2008 at all on pay-per-view. Let's recap Jeff Hardy's year. He lost the Royal Rumble to Randy Orton. He lost inside the Elimination Chamber the following month of No Way Out. Was not at WrestleMania. Was not at Backlash. Was not at Judgment Day. Oh, he was at Judgment. He beat MVP, actually. He was at Judgment Day. He was at One Night Stand. He beat Umaga, so he's got 2 pay-per-view wins up to this point. He was not at Night of Champions. Left off the show. He was not at Great American Bash, I don't think. Or was he? I don't think so. He was not at Great American Bash? I can't remember what he was doing. I don't think he was on the show, though. Lost at SummerSlam to MVP. Lost an Unforgiven in the Championship Scramble. Lost to No Mercy to Triple H. Lost again at Cyber Sunday to Triple H in another one-on-one match. And technically was not a part of Survivor Series. The guy, in so many words, was, in storyline, a loser in 2008. Yet, despite all that, was the most over guy in the entire roster by far. And anyone who worked in that locker room at that period in time, 2008 in WWE, will tell you that Jeff Hardy was hands down the most over guy in that company that year, and in 2009 before he left. So that being said, despite his many losses, they had to give him his big win at some point. I think many people were hoping they would give it to him at WrestleMania. But maybe at that point, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Maybe he wouldn't have been as popular by that point. I would reckon that he probably still would have been. I mean, coming off of how many losses on pay-per-view? Really, like 4 or 5 in a row? He was still over. So I think if they waited another month or two, it still would have been special if they gave him the belt at WrestleMania. But they gave him the belt here. It was a good match. Love the spear through the table from Edge to Jeff Hardy. I think Triple H moved out of the way. He was going to do a pedigree, but he moved, whatever. That was a great spot. Pretty standard triple threat, otherwise not blow away, but still pretty good. And a great finish. Triple H hitting the pedigree on Edge. Jeff Hardy follows up. Out of nowhere, a great camera angle. They're showing Triple H covering Edge after doing the pedigree. And Jeff Hardy literally comes out of nowhere. They don't foreshadow it. They don't show Jeff Hardy up on the top turnbuckle. He just comes out of nowhere. Great camera angle, or lack of camera angle, rather. Shows him pinning Edge to score the victory, and we have a new WWE champion. Just an amazing celebration. Lasts like all of 10 minutes. They probably even went on when they all went off the air. I know Matt Hardy celebrated with him, and I don't think Matt Hardy showed up at the end of the pay-per-view, but I do remember like footage of them celebrating his championship win. Like leading up to the WrestleMania 25 match. I'm sure he came out afterwards or whatever. But a great response. The crowd is pretty much surprised. Like, wow, Jeff Hardy won. They were shocked because Edge just came back. He just regained the gold. They probably thought he was getting fucked over here and Edge was going to retain, but he didn't. Jeff Hardy won in an amazing year to end a pretty, in storyline, an up and down year, very much a down year for Jeff Hardy, but popularity-wise, he was at his peak. And that peak was sustained. It's not like Ryback where he was popular for like a month or two. He was popular all year round. And they capitalized off it when they should have. I mean, granted, they took the title off him at the Royal Rumble the following month, which was bullshit, but it led to a story with Matt and whatever else. And they were probably going to do Jeff Hardy and Christian anyway. So regardless of whether it was Matt or Christian or whatever, Jeff Hardy was not going to be in that championship match at WrestleMania. I'm sure it was going to be Orton and Triple H the entire time, which is stupid. You guys already know my thoughts on that. But that closed out Armageddon 2008. So overall, from a nostalgic standpoint, I feel like I enjoyed the show more just because I was a fan at that time. I'm definitely biased. Putting that aside, not really a must-see show at all. The opener was pretty standard, not must-see. Punk and Mysterio was good, fun, but not like an amazing match. They would have those amazing matches later on in 2010. This was just kind of testing the waters between the two. And you have that babyface and babyface dynamic. It's not like that, that dynamic they had in 2010 where Punk was that just absolute asshole of a heel. Finley and Mark Henry, fine filler, but nothing spectacular, nothing memorable. Batista Orton, good match, but nothing great. Women's match was exactly what you would expect. Cena, Jericho, solid, and the main event was pretty good. So I'd watch it if only for the main event. That is the one match I would recommend watching from the show. You can watch it in full. Not an amazing blow-away show, but these December pay-per-views, as I've talked about time and time again throughout this Armageddon review series, this is the 10th and final installment to date, or rather 9th, because I forgot they didn't do one in 2002. Or 2002 or 2001? 2002 they didn't do one. No, 2001 they didn't do one, because they put Venge in that slot. That's what it was. They didn't do one in 2001. But it always feels like, by and large, overall Armageddon speaking-wise, just speaking overall in Armageddon here, it felt like a lot of these pay-per-views just weren't great. Some of them were good, or even pretty good, but most of them were pretty like, like meh. Whether it was a dual-branded thing, tri-branded, singular brand, just a SmackDown pay-per-view, or just a Raw it didn't matter. It felt like a, pretty forgettable show more often than not. So, not the greatest series of shows. I still say to this day, Backlash are the best pay-per-views ever. Like, I was just thinking about that recently. Backlash, and I'm actually recording this before this year's installment, so I can't say if the strong streak continued with the 2016 show. But Backlash had some amazing fucking shows, dude. So definitely check out those. Binge watch those on the WWE Network. I know that's pretty unrelated, but in terms of this show, I wouldn't watch it in its entirety. But definitely check out the main event, if only Jeff Hardy's victory for that coronation, that celebration, the Jeff Hardy party, as Jim Ross coined it on commentary. So those are my thoughts and review, guys, of Armageddon 2008. As always, thank you for watching and listening. I was going to say what I'm going to be reviewing next, but I completely forgot. I have the whole lineup up until literally next June. I plan so far in advance. But we will be taking a break, so just a heads up. I will have a couple more episodes out, I think up until Survivor Series weekend, to review Survivor Series 2015, TLC, 2014, 2015, and all those shows. But up until that, and a couple miscellaneous shows, my next review might be fucking Rock Bottom 1998, shows like that. Just to kind of wrap up those shows before I get into the In Your House reviews, which I'm sure I know a lot of people have asked me when I'm going to be talking about it, and I'll be talking about those at the onset of 2017. So WrestleRant will be taking a sabbatical, a break, whatever you want to call it, right after Thanksgiving, and we will be back at the start of 2017 with an all-new schedule. Right now, we currently have 2 WrestleRant videos up a week, 2 WWE Network and Chill videos up a week. It's pretty crazy, so we will be adjusting that schedule. Hashtag AskGSM might find a new home, hint, hint, in the months ahead, so just keep that open in the remainder of the month of November. But in the meantime, in the between time, guys, always be sure to find me on the Twitter machine and follow me there at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook. Give the Pagino a thumbs up at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. And right here on YouTube, I appreciate your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. So have an amazing week, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.